I'd like to call this special board meeting to order. Roll call.
Mr. Ballard? Here. Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Sturgill?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance. First hearing of the public.
I wanted to add something last week that we said about the public. And I remember Nancy said that about how we gathered the students, the pupil count that we did. Well, I remember because Nancy and all the teachers would do that for their classroom, and you were trying to explain how they did it for the classroom, and then it was sent to the office, and I was one of the ones that had to gather it for the entire building. And then we sort of had it was like a duty for all of the assistant principals and the ones that the principals that did do it, that it was our job that we made sure that it was like a thing that we made sure that ours was perfect so we could send it down to the office. We had no idea that when we sent it down and that we were so good that you couldn't get your money back. So, and that it continues even to today, that you still can't get your money back. So it doesn't matter how good we are, that because the system is the way it is and they don't have enough.
Well, it's not that we can't get our money back. If it's within the same fiscal year, it will adjust. It'll flow through the foundation accordingly based on what's reported, as long as there's no discrepancies. It's the prior years. So if it's been unreported and we find something that's been wrong for 3 or 4 years, that's when it's optional for a prior for the district that received the funds they would have to do it. It would not flow back through the state. So that's the difference. If it's in the same fiscal year, it can be adjusted.
Okay, so we have to make sure that we're on top of it during that year.
Correct.
So that if we can't go back and say, hey, we found some mistakes that you made,
Yeah.
and that you should.
It's mistakes on both sides, because if it's unreported on your side and that other district didn't report it, it's really mistakes on both ends. And that's what most of those districts will say when you come to them. I mean, I've had people approach me and say that they found some stuff, and the state does not mandate you to pay that back. If it's
So
out
even if it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that they owe us.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any folks for the hearing of the public?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Not sure where we went, but
Yeah,
we're
she was
back.
back there, and I thought, all right, so what you're saying is, remember you had this like, you were saying like, is it October?
Mhm.
It's October. So you said that sometimes the kids come, is it after October? I thought you were saying they came after October and you couldn't get your money back after October, with no refund.
It's not after October. October used to be the old count.
Yeah, okay.
And then they would do a count later in the year as well. And depending on timing, they can report those dates. Whereas it's not set times now, it's more of a fluid system to where
It's
they
a better
track it.
situation now than it was before.
Yes.
Before, you did it on these specific times, and if
Yes.
you missed, you missed. Now, it's continuous.
Yes.
Weekly.
Okay.
It's good, we're in a better scenario for us.
It's constantly updating
Yeah.
now, whereas before, if you didn't make it on those count days, somebody could walk in right after the second count date, and you might not get it updated unless, now that's not to say, the count dates are just kind of an overall, for my purposes, I'll say overall audit of your student counts. But if you have a student come in after that date and you're aware of it, you can report that change. And then it would just come to the fact of wherever the student was reported otherwise, they would contact them and say, is this accurate information, and figure it out. Then it would update that way. But if it wasn't caught in either way on those, it would go unreported, and then the money would
So
stay where it was at.
So these people, those kids coming from those other so-called schools, okay, we can get their money. right? Since they can come in, we can just go boom, and we can get the money from them people.
It depends on how it's reported and timing, but yes, that would be,
Okay, it's a
the money,
faster way
it's
now.
the whole idea of the money follows the student.
Right.
That's as long as everything's reported correctly.
Okay, so
So.
if we do it right, we can get our money back, right? Our money.
You should. If the student's here, the money should come back.
Okay.
Yes.
And do we need to do a little, perhaps, prodding of the other systems so that they'll remember to give our money back?
Well, they, at that point, if it's in the same fiscal year, they don't have any control of it. It's when the state looks into it, and as long as both districts are agreeing where the student's at, the state, that'll flow through your foundation payments. You'll get that money regardless. The only time you ever have to get in touch with the other district in regards to money that's due to you is if it's outside of the fiscal year, then you can request it, but they do not necessarily have to pay it. Yeah, it's more of a request to say, hey, we just found this, and they can say, no, sorry.
They don't have to be the nice
And
guy.
truthfully, it's more of a hassle, and a lot of the reason why they don't do it is because it's more of a hassle, because when I close my books for the year, the books are closed. To have to reopen them is the biggest pain you can ever imagine. So that's most of the time, they're not gonna wanna mess with it, especially if it's a small dollar amount, a couple $100,000. I might press a little harder if I was the one here at the time, but it's, they don't have to, that's the main thing.
Okay.
We're gonna visit this again. I was just waiting, should I have my
Yeah,
conversation now?
we're actually under the hearing of the public.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh,
not
yes.
that opportunity. So you're just fine. That's not for us. But if there are no other folks that want to speak, we'll move on with the agenda. I need a motion to approve, amend, and sign the minutes from the last board meeting held September, what is it?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Abstain.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Any old business?
Now, I have old business. Okay, pertaining to the conversation that we just had, Josh, I'd like to ask you, actually, I have a request for information, and we used to get a report per school, how many students were per school. There has to be something that you use to send your accounting to, if you could, I would like to have that per school, and also from grade school through high school and early college, but only our students.
Just enrollment for our kids?
Yeah, just enrollment for our students and not every student that's out at community college.
Okay.
Because it's my understanding that there's other districts that are in with early college.
Mhm.
So that early college doesn't actually, it's just our students.
We still have to
Okay.
report it, so it'd be more, we'll probably do an EMIS report for that, because we still have to report them as our students. It's not intermingled in EMIS, so we would look at it from that aspect, who we're reporting as our students within EMIS.
Are you saying that count will be in with ours?
No, EMIS is separated out by school district, so if we do a report of who's in early college,
Yeah.
it'll just be our students that we're
Okay.
reporting. We're not gonna be able to see Illyria's kids in our numbers.
Also, in the last week or two, the state came out with a value-added grade or score, if you call it. I would like to know what that is, if you can speak to that, there may be certain things you can't speak to, but it is just information from the state that we got, and then I know that all school districts got it within the last week or two.
I didn't receive it, but yeah, we can get it for you.
Yeah, and it's on value added, so this time of year, everybody gets it, so.
Okay. I'll get it for you guys and forward it to you as soon as I get it.
Yeah, I'd like to know what that is, but yeah, I figured that you had to have some way to charge things for the state, so yours would be the most accurate.
Mine, I get them twice a month, and it's through the foundation report. If you go into the detail is where I see my counts, but an EMIS report's gonna be more current, especially in this time of year when you could have 10, 15 kids added every day. So I'd rather do that for you and get you a more current enrollment than wait, I think.
Well, I'm also concerned with and this is where human error comes in, is people that aren't taken out of the system, you know? And you wouldn't know that, I mean, it has to be done at some time,
Of course.
okay, but I wanna know how many was removed, you know? And, I mean, if I could get that type of information, because when I went on and I read, Mr. Hardy's, report on his website, and he said that we gained 200, you know, and, well, that's great, you know, but,
And that's what's being reported to the state. So at this early time period, I would probably think, not to say that all of those 200 could be inaccurate, but it's so early that it could be that those students, especially when you're looking at absentee numbers and things like that, we might have gained 200, but if we look at total absences, how much of those align to that? He's talking about currently enrolled is 200, I'm sure.
so we didn't have a drop in grade school numbers this summer?
Not that according to his overall numbers that he's reporting, it's 200, but again, that number's changing daily. And I know, I mean, we especially,
Why are we publicizing numbers that aren't accurate then?
it was just as of that day. And
So he's gonna update it every day?
not necessarily. I mean, but it could be
I mean,
easily updated every
with that-
day. It's not, you know.
With that conversation in mind, you know, I did think about it, I think we did discuss this before. Is there money in the board budget to look at getting an independent auditor to look at student data, enrollment, finances, academic data? I mean, because I'll be real honest with you, you know, I just made a request for some data from the high school that obviously was less than truthful, so I'm not sure what data to believe, but I would feel so much more confident if we had an independent auditor come in for the board standpoint to get the information we need. You know, I don't know if anybody objects to that or what, just something to talk about, you know, because again, I just don't, obviously, several things have occurred that I just don't trust the information that we're receiving in the most recent document you gave me. I mean, when I know that it's the opposite of what was
Well, yeah,
given to me.
there's the information, the accuracy of the information we receive, which is a question. Then there's this other body of information. So like even last year, we never got a report on student progress. It came out, and so at that time, we'd considered having someone from the ESC or someplace else. Again, that's kind of strange that you can't get a presentation of your data by your staff. But again, I mean, I think at this stage, definitely, we should probably find out who it is out there that could do that. Is that a function that the ESC can do? Is that someone from the state? Is that an independent contract? And then, and I know we set aside $25,000, I think it was. And if we have to tap into that money, I know there's money designated for board.
You guys have a board budget, so.
Yeah, so it's unfortunately, it's not that we have to spend money like that for that, but we're not getting the information otherwise. I just don't get
Is
it.
there anybody on the board that's interested in spearheading that initiative? And reaching out to people like the ESC and maybe
Yeah,
some other
I'll do it.
We gotta get the raw data first, though, right?
Well,
They can get it.
Yeah,
Okay, fair enough.
and so what I'm, you know, and we've seen lots of data, but it's not our professional, we're not here to interpret data. We're here to have data presented to us.
That's true, but I've been asking for the raw data.
Right.
From the test score, state test scores, since it came out.
And they haven't gotten it.
You haven't
No.
gotten it.
No follow-up, period.
Makes you wonder why.
Well, the thing is, it's not a big wonder. It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Right.
And we haven't, it's not like we haven't seen bad data. It's just, yeah, anyway, okay. So I'll, take that initiative,
That'd be great. Thank you.
and then I'll communicate with you.
Okay.
And I didn't mean to cut you off, Bill. Were you done with your request?
No, when I look at this paper in front of me that was sent to us about the amount of fights and things that happened, and I see that it's mostly at the high school, but I don't think, I mean, if they have fights at George Daniel Field, okay, that's still our property. Okay, and things like that are still to be included. I mean, I can see that this is Mr. Garvey's and just for the high school, but You know, I mean, it would have been better if it would have came from Mr. Hawks, who I think is over the safety department and operations. Yeah, if we would have had something from him, I think, you know, maybe this is Mr. Garvey's truth, you know, but,
Mr. Hawks actually prepared it, but the numbers within here is what was reported from Mr. Garvey.
Yeah, so what's happened for us is we've heard from multiple sources. I mean, parents, we've gotten calls, police chief, like face-to-face, you know, hour-long conversations, and other officers, because we work with the police on lots of other things. And their statement of numbers is absolutely conflicting this statement of numbers. So, and I think, and we've talked among ourselves, some of us, when it comes to safety, a lot of other things, there's different agendas, there's different motivations, there's why we do what we do or why the administration does what it does. When it comes to public safety pieces, that's like a whole nother place.
Of course.
And when we hear directly from law enforcement that they make recommendations, specific recommendations, and they are told that that is not how it's going to be done, that's alarming, especially when they are the resident experts on public safety. And some of the statements that have been made back to us, you know, are real challenging because they were very aggressive, they were very disappointed, insulted, but more than that, and it's not like, you know, someone will say, well, we should just, you know, not be there because we're exposing ourselves to great liability, but that's not an option either because public safety is theirs. And so, and I also understand that Jamie Montague is no longer in charge of the safety component. He's been moved, and I don't know the details of it necessarily, but I know he's no longer in that position, which is a significant change, be it good, bad, his decision, whatever, but that's a major. And so when we hear that, along with the direct reports from police officers, resource officers who are here, sharing with us some of the incidents that have occurred, that's what drove us to make this request. And then when you get the information that was sent back to us, when did any of us who saw that, we were like, wow, that's coming in conflict. What we've heard from teachers, students. My wife is a registrar at Clearview the first week. I mean, I've got parents calling me from there because they're getting their kids out because they're being threatened. They were actually in fights, beat up, and the mom's here, and no one's being suspended. And you know, I think they've reversed some of those things of late. But there is, and so this is a discussion that's it's not internal. This is a discussion that's downtown police department, other districts, parents, and so if we think that this is in a little bubble vacuum, it's not. And Chief Sel Rivera was, I could say on the record, was not real happy with how the process was going in this, as were specific other officers.
And nor are a lot of his officers
Yeah.
that have had to deal
So-
with. I mean, one police officer said he didn't even leave his car because there was 20 kids fighting and, you know, he's not getting in the middle of that.
Well,
So he waited till
and
they
if
got
not fist fighting,
worn
they're
down.
gathering, you know, it's very confrontational, and we've heard this a lot from a lot of folks.
Safety is a major concern, and, you know, I got somebody that reached out to me that is a emotionally disabled teacher that had a child that had a seizure in their classroom, and the emergency call button didn't work, so they had to send students. I mean, they're an emotional disabled student class. They're sending these kids down to the office to get help for this kid that had a seizure, and yet our safety leadership is telling these teachers in the ED and MD, multiple disabled student classrooms, that they cannot have radios like they've had in the past to deal with issues like that. I've also heard that no teacher has received a safety manual or evacuation plans in our buildings. Students haven't received student handbooks. I mean, we're in week 3 of the school year, and these are things that should be a priority, but they're not. And I'm telling you, I'm a little disappointed in the data that I got, and I know that you didn't give it to me, but I can just say that that's a flat-out lie, what they've given to me on this paper, because I know for a fact that it is much worse than that. as people have addressed some real safety concerns
Well, we-
that are going on right now, and they haven't been dealt with.
So for our next meeting, and because this is a safety issue, it is an executive session material, because it's talking about student discipline specifically in those pieces. And the other piece, of course, we can't reveal safety plans at a public meeting, because that would compromise. So I would suggest that we send a formal invitation to the police chief and whatever other folks that he would like to bring. I don't know that that it's an issue necessarily with the fire department, but if it's a safety issue, that could be a consideration. I don't know. And I think Mr. Hawks would be an appropriate person to be there, or whoever else Mr. Hardy thinks should be. But at our next meeting, and I know the chief has already expressed that he would more than willingly come. And we don't want to, we're not going to make this this isn't a political battle. This is about safety. So we have protocols on how we deal with safety. And there are changes that, listen, we may not need to be informed, or someone might not think we should be informed of certain academic and operational changes in the district. But anything that impacts the safety of students and teachers, I would argue, fight, challenge, that's a hill that we would probably get on and battle on and somebody die on. Because especially when we have a direct relationship, a trusted relationship that's been built over time. And so, though House Bill 70 gives absolute total control of a district, it does not give you to be the expert on public safety. And so if they want to battle between the police department and what they think they're, that's a whole other story. But I think in the interim, making sure our buildings are safe, students are safe, teachers are safe, not necessarily that order, but that's, and there are lots of people scared, and they're trying to get out, and, and I think that is not a reason, we always said this, kids leaving our district, that's gonna happen, but it shouldn't be because we did something to push them out and make them leave. If parents wanna take their kids to a smaller place because that's a better learning environment for them, however, that kid is a private school because of those are great reasons for parents to make their decisions. But because an incident occurred and they're afraid for their safety, that's not a good reason.
So the calls that I've gotten over the last week starts in elementary school. So we had an elementary school that was on lockdown, I guess, in the last week or so.
Probably, I don't know.
Yeah, I had a parent who was never notified that their school was on lockdown, and I have other parents whose kids are gone from the district who did get notified that the schools were on lockdown, and they couldn't figure out what was happening there. We used to get that information, so when we were asked, I was totally surprised that we were even on lockdown with a gun in the neighborhood. I didn't know Jamie Montague was gone. Did he get demoted, or did he get displaced, or what happened with that?
I don't know if anything's formally done yet, but I know something is happening. I don't have all the information, honestly.
And I've been charged through the community to come to George Daniel. They gave me a time. They said, come to George Daniel at 2:15, and that's when you'll get to see the full melee. It happens every day. It happens every day. They were told, they called the school. They were told, my understanding, by Jeff Hawks, to take pictures of the melee. When they suggested that administrator come there to see the melee because they could do something with these kids, he says, just take pictures, send them to us. We will then go through the pictures and figure out who we need to discipline. And that's not a real action plan.
It's not preventive
For a
anyway.
consumer or a customer or a citizen to take pictures and come and say, here's the evidence, now you guys go out and discipline your students. Back to the elementary schools, I guess they're having a big bullying issue. So there's parents who are who are trying to now to get their kids out because the teachers aren't able to do anything with the students based on the new policy of not suspending or disciplining those kids. So those are the issues with safety that concerns me. And I guess here's the biggest fight. There's actually people in the community who are hedging bets that by the end of October, there's going to be a catastrophic type situation that happens in these schools because of those safety issues. They're not doing it from a funny or cute point of view, but they just know that it's exploding up to that point. And it seems like there's no systems in place to take care of the kids. I understand that we have the New Beginning kids that are here now, and we'll just talk about it in the raw form. And those kids, I guess, get out before the other children. And my understanding is they're just kind of hanging out and hanging around one of our athletes, one of our football players, were at a football game, and a melee of 20 kids came and surrounded him, and this kid had a previous brother that has been killed in our district. And the statement was made to him is, we're going to put you where your brother is. And there was administrators around and never broke up the hassle or the bullying. And this kid is saying, look, I'm not a punk. Don't want to fight, don't want to be suspended, but I'm not going to take this either. And I know this family very well, and if that word got out to that family, we would have a all-out melee because of what happened back in 2009 to this other student. So this thing is a powder keg right now. And this is not a House Bill 70 issue. This is a safety in the city of Lorain issue
And it's-
that we really have to take very seriously.
It's a prime example of having inexperienced and unqualified people that don't know how to deal with those situations being hired in this.
That's really
And
frightening,
That's a prime
though.
example. I mean, I'm just being honest.
And people of stature are now saying that I won't even go to the football games because we know what's getting ready to break out. I want to take my kid, but I'm not going there because there's just no controls in place.
I heard something in it.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
What is how did they come to the statistical information that they have given me, all of us here, about the fights, and how do they come by it? And if they made this information in comparison to what? If you have this statistical information, it should be compared to the previous,
Year over year kind of a deal?
yeah.
Okay.
So it should be compared to the previous superintendent's, what
Well,
was
there's-
his life at the same time?
But I think the other piece of it is,
So that we would know. So now we know, did it improve? Is it worse? How is it?
so the challenge for us is this. Normally, we were made aware of these things that are going on. So now what happens is the awareness that we would have would be reports from the district. If there was a lockdown, we'd be notified. There were incidents. Why? Because they knew that people were going to still call us, and we need to be able to explain to them what's going on, right?
Yes, but we know we don't have
Right,
that
so we don't have
power
that. So what
anymore.
happens, but the people still call us, right? So then what happens is we make a request for information based on these things. Now,
And we don't get the
right,
information.
so the information that we got.
The accurate information.
Yes.
Right, and so the reason that there might not be a comparative, I mean, there'd be data they could compare to, but this was just a report based on, we've heard A, B, C, and D, what's happening, and then we get this information. And I don't know how this information is reported to them. I don't know
Well,
whether, yeah, so.
Well, I can say this, and I gave an example of that ED issue. Well, also, the last part of that story is there was a leader in this building that told that teacher not to document that incident. Wow. So, you know, she documented it anyway. But this is what is going on to the point where, so how many times are they having those conversations about those fights? Well, don't document that. Don't
But we
worry
can't
about that.
improve
You-
unless we have a
Agreed.
situation.
And I've heard this, and I'm not gonna say specifically what it was, but and we will do that, I think, offline. There was some kind of correspondence that I was told that was out that indicated certain students, based on certain demographic information, should not be suspended.
Wow.
Something to the point of these students, and I don't know what the depth of it was.
I heard something similar to that last spring. That there were too many black males were being suspended.
Absolutely. I
And-
heard that way back when I was
And
working.
that, you know, and I agree with that to a point, okay? But when you start having fights and this and that, and it depends on what you have to have, you have to have a rule of law in the school, you know?
And this is one thing we're talking about, you know,
But the busing thing,
Dress code violations.
the busing thing in that area,
Right.
I mean, they have cameras on buses, right? Why would not, we as a district, you know, why
I'm sure
should,
we have cameras at George Daniel.
why
don't we?
should, why, no, I'm
Yeah.
not so sure that we do. I mean, I would think, before I would tell somebody, take it, I'd say, far as the liability, we should have cameras from different angles also on those buses, simply because they're moving vehicles.
Especially if this is a very big concern. Why
Yeah.
would you, I mean.
Well, I know we
we're
did this
too
at the
busy making
playgrounds. Remember when we had those
embarrassing
fires at the
videos
playgrounds? This
to,
is before you.
take the
We had
time
some
to make
playgrounds
those
And
proper
burns our
safety
insurance went up
steps.
this year because of it.
Yeah, and we had
So,
to
yeah.
install cameras on our playgrounds because
Right.
they were burning stuff and they were doing all kinds of stuff at the playground. But when you don't have any parks, that's what happens. So, and then the suspension's based on somebody having their belt, we were trying to avoid those. And again, I think that proportionately speaking, statistically, black males are far more excessively than others. And I get that. However, when we get to things of fighting, and the truth is, and this is gonna sound bad, but it's okay, it's bringing New Beginnings back, created a different challenge.
A different atmosphere.
A different challenge, different atmosphere, a different student or scholar, whatever you want to call them. And in mainstreaming that, you place kids who have less control or respond differently to certain stimulus in kids. It's very different. And part of the thing that we were focused on with New Beginnings is not warehousing kids, making sure they are in the appropriate environment where they could have the appropriate resources and the appropriate attention so they could function. Now what's happened is there are lots of kids who, our district had a major issue with the perception of danger throughout the county. This was considered a very unsafe place. We had lots of kids leaving the district because of that perception. Those perceptions weren't always true, but that's how Lorain was perceived. And so we spent a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy over the last 10 years to change that perception. So it was viewed by people here as a safe place to go to school. Well, what's happening right now, and has been happening in the recent time, is that's being reversed again. Where we had pretty much diminished some of those hypersensitive ideas that weren't true. Now, I'm not saying they're all true, but that is the reputation we are now building back up into. And that is, so when people think it's unsafe, and then when you have law enforcement making the statements that they've made to us, there's no secrets, and it's just, it could really go badly.
To your comparative point, in all my years of being a teacher, coach, a parent, and a board member in this school district, I've never seen it this bad.
Never.
Never seen it as bad as it is right
Would
now.
it help if a line of us all go out and say at 2:00 and line up on the front of the building?
So the problem
with-
is, listen, we're not equipped with the abilities to handle those situations. So these people that are making safety decisions in this district need to take additional steps to keep those kids safe. Putting yourself at risk to get hurt out there probably isn't a good idea.
And I wouldn't even say you probably
But
wouldn't get hurt.
I'm saying just to be there.
Yeah, this is an internal issue that has to have a strategic manner in which it's handled. Now, I don't even have major issue with some of the fights that are occurring. Stuff happens. But when I hear from law enforcement, the recommendations that they've made on how to deal with this not only are challenged, but then they're questioned things like, well, what'd you guys do over the summer? Didn't you deal with this gang issue over the summer? So that's the combativeness of it. And when that's occurring, that's the problem. Listen, if kids are fighting, kids fight. If we have a district that's violent, it's violent. I don't think that we do. Those things have to be managed internally in terms of how you use personnel, how you use policy. And when you start to create policy that doesn't create certain consequences, you can have as many people standing around as you want to. How many teachers do we have in high school?
High school, I don't know off the top of my head.
There's a lot of adults
Yes.
present, okay? We used to say this, if you're gonna get in a fight in school because it'll get broke up in about 30 seconds. It's, when the adults don't feel safe, because they feel safe based on policies that support and cause kids to have consequences so they don't do certain things. When you start messing with that, that's creating, and it's a policy issue, part of it, and an enforcement. And when someone says, don't make this report, if that's the kind of unspoken rules that are starting to permeate, you got a real problem.
So what good would it do if we, as the board, try to get the police in and find out what they're doing?
Well, that's what we're doing. We're gonna have at a meeting, we're gonna get a report from the police to find out what has transpired. So rather than dealing with all this, what we've heard this or heard that, we're gonna talk to folks, and make sure it's very clear to everybody in the district that public safety is non-negotiable. And when law enforcement has recommendations on how we deal with public safety, that is not advice. That is not information you can ignore. And I think and so however we need to make that stand, again, we understand that our board as a board has little power or impact. But when it comes to public safety, we were elected. We do have relationships with the public safety entities in this community, and there's no way we're gonna hand over public safety. House Bill 70 didn't trump that.
Yes.
No, it might.
For us to say, Mom.
Folks might think it did, but I think on that front, that's just because kids are at risk. And our reputation. I mean, remember when we used to have Channel 19 and Channel 8? They would be here before we even knew about things. Because kids are they're on their phones.
Has anybody been hurt to the point of hospitalization
I don't think so.
or any teacher?
Not that I've been made aware of.
We don't want to get there.
No,
That's
Yes.
the
No.
That's where we don't want it to go to.
I think
We
it was
wanna-
a girl who got hurt.
prevent that.
Oh.
There was a girl that
But
think
I
so.
just
I'm
wanted to
pretty
make sure.
there was a girl that got
Beginning
hurt.
of this year or
What
last year?
happened, Bill?
So I'm pretty sure that there was a girl that got hurt this year.
And that happens. I mean, we aren't going to be hyper crazy, but
Mm-hmm.
this atmosphere is volatile right now.
I had one of my grandchildren, I won't say which one it is, but they told me if I want to see a fight, come to seventh period lunch. Said it happens every day like clockwork. And for,
Seventh
it just
period
to
lunch.
make a statement like that, okay, just to make a statement like that
What
was,
time is that?
I don't know,
The seventh period lunch.
seventh period lunch.
Take pictures and give them the job.
Yes, I would like to know the time.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine I could find out, but, I mean,
Please do.
I thought that was going a bit far, but, you know, maybe it isn't,
Yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah, even like a statement like that, let's say that it is hyper. That means it's still there. In other words, people aren't making stuff up. They might exaggerate things, but they exaggerate what exists. So, and we're just hearing from so many different places.
That's bad.
Mark, you've heard it, he's heard it, he's heard it, I've heard it. Have you heard it?
I've heard.
We've all heard it. So if all of us keep hearing stuff and it doesn't line up to 5,
And my problem, like I said, isn't just at the high school.
I've been called.
An idea.
Yeah.
You've been called as well.
I've been called.
That's good. I'm glad they're reaching out to everybody, so you don't think it's just a one-sided decision.
I'll tell you another thing I'm getting a lot of calls on, and can you please get me a statement from somebody that helps me understand the educational reasoning behind Tuesday half-days? Why are kids going to school at 8 o'clock and getting released at 10:30? I just don't see how that could academically help any child, nor, I've never seen a reason why we did that.
Wait a minute, what is, I wasn't aware of
Tuesday
that one.
half-days.
We have Tuesday-
Starting tomorrow,
I saw something on the site that
every
early
child's being
dismissal.
released at 10:30.
Is that true?
PD days, yeah.
Every Tuesday?
Not
Every-
every Tuesday.
No, are you sure?
not
I was
every
told
Tuesday.
every Tuesday,
It's not every Tuesday.
I
half
got that
days.
call.
Let me see if I can find that email, because I saw
But,
that. in the email.
Man, like what are we
Yeah,
doing?
I mean, I know we're not the babysitting
One
agency, but
Tuesday
what
a
do
month.
parents
Yeah,
do?
it's one Tuesday a
I
month.
was one Tuesday.
One
a month
Tuesday.
One's Tuesday a month?
At the meeting.
yeah,
Okay.
it's not every Tuesday.
I mean, we
No,
can't,
I had every
we
Tuesday.
can't do professional development another time where we're not cutting it out of kids' academic time?
Well, I'm sure the union likes that.
I'm sure they do.
Give my PD while I get, yeah.
Yeah.
I just think about it. I'm glad I don't have a kid anymore, because she's like, oh, you're coming home when? On Tuesdays? On Tuesday. Whew. Maybe, I hope let me quit.
Okay. Yes.
9 months from this Tuesday, right? You know how we parents think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that just happened?
Yeah,
Unreal.
I just started. or to
All right,
start.
any other old business?
We got our request, you got all those requests?
She's
He was
got
just nodding, but I think he's gonna get the video.
I'm not done.
She's got it all documented. I'll do
I'm
what I
not, I'm
can.
not done. I got new business coming up.
The old business, the NAACP did want a request from the board to give tickets for let's see, September the 15th, and buy a ticket for the table for the social hour from 5 to 6 p.m. at the Knights of St. John, 1620 Kansas Avenue, Lorain, Ohio. The theme this year is Defeat, Hate, Vote. The keynote speaker will be Meryl Johnson. She's a retired Cleveland City School educator, and she currently serves as the state school board member. This function is our main fundraiser. We will need to know no later than September the 8th, 2018, if you plan on attending or not. Please call me, 440-242-0174, or General Brown at 440-258-2831 for more information. Thank you for your continued support, and we look forward to seeing you. Now, enclosed is 9 tickets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Since I know that the board is going to have an entire table, I just will assume that you don't need these tickets, and I can leave them at the door and mark them Board of Education? Am I to assume that? And
I know.
I will see the board there as they have supported other endeavors. And since this is the state school board member that is going to be a speaker, that it would be wonderful to see you there to greet her.
And I have another previous engagement. It's my wife's 50th birthday party. But, and I didn't say anything, and I should have. I found it interesting or challenging. Miss Rice, Jean Rice, who has called Tony a racist, called for all of our resignations, that we should no longer be school board members, would actually come and ask us. I mean, everybody's heard the statements that she's made publicly about this body, and personally.
And I say that sometimes you need to let that stuff go and stop looking behind you and look ahead of you, and know that you're not supporting Jean Rice, that you're supporting the NAACP.
Yeah.
Because if I did that, there would be a lot of people that I would not
Right.
support, but I don't look at people and judge them through their personality.
I'm not
I
judging you, but I'm
judge
listening
them-
to the statements from her mouth. I ain't talking about personality.
I know.
I'm talking about.
And you know,
Yeah, so-
and she has said some harsh things, but that's Jean Rice. But that is not the NAACP. So I let that go, and I put that behind me, and I still say the NAAC because I'm a lifetime member, and I still say I'm still proud of the NAACP. You know, and I will continue to be so. So I'm not going to let one issue or one thing stop me, because I said in an op-ed that was in the Lorain Journal that none of us agree as the Board of Education on ideas, but all of us agree that we love what? The Lorain city. And all of us do, but we don't agree on how to get there. So that is one of the things I do. And when I see you out, I'm not going to carry it with me because we don't agree. When I see you, I'm going to greet you just like you another fellow man, because I'm bigger than that. And I know that you're bigger than that. And just because that we have a difference of opinion, and it's a strong difference of opinion, that when I see Tony, I'm still going to agree with Tony. And Lord knows we are opposite ends of what we agree on. But we are friends when we see each other out.
Not always on opposite ends.
No,
And again,
and we're not
listen,
always,
and-
we don't
what I'm-
always
and again,
disagree.
And what I'm stating
Mhm.
is, I've supported NAACP. That's
I
not
know
the-
you do.
But she is and what she does is she stands. Jean, she stood there and defined herself as the position, then made her statement. She didn't say, Jean Rice, a citizen. So again, I get it. But again, when a person does that kind of thing, and then again comes back on another occasion and says, please pledge your financial support. How much does it cost for this table?
I think it's $35, if I'm not sure,
A ticket per person, but what is a
per
table?
person. 9 times $35.
Okay, which is,
Yvonne, what usually has happened, and this,
$320 for,
I was gonna say, it's the table cost, it's not just.
for the ticket,
well, this,
for a table.
so there's a table cost and
usually
then a ticket cost.
nobody,
No, if you get the table, that's your ticket.
Usually
But there's
nobody
there's
brings
two separate.
things like this to the board, but what they do is they usually send it to, when we had a superintendent, it always went to the superintendent's office. They bought a table, and then they would distribute tickets if you wanted to go, so they put no political aspect on it.
The
So-
superintendent's already buying his own table. So he's buying a table on his own.
The CEO.
The CEO, sorry. I didn't mean to demote him. But the CEO is buying a ticket, and I thought that we would buy a table also.
Not cutting you off, but remember that's why she thought you know, because you supported that Hispanic, whatever.
Yeah, that was the same thing we said then, is normally we don't get those.
But she brought whoever
Yep.
brought it, so that's why I guess Jean thought that that's what you're supposed to do, bring it to the board, because that person brought this thing to the board. I remember her bringing it and saying, that's what it is.
I know, because I second that emotion.
Yeah, and I probably felt the same way had they come in and called us racist and that kind of thing. I'm just stating how I feel.
They
That's all.
don't.
We're not talking about that. I'm just
They-
talking about that
Right.
you brought it to the same way she did, so.
Okay. Any
So-
other old,
So when are we going to get over the attitude?
I don't have an.
That's all.
I have no
That-
attitude to get over.
that's all I'm
Listen,
saying.
I have, and I've stated it clearly, I have no attitude to get over. My expressions about Jean Rice are clear. I'm not trying to get over it. It's not impeding me. It doesn't, I don't lose sleep over it. I'm just no longer giving her a free pass where she says whatever she wants to say, and then I just say, yes, ma'am. Keep moving. That's not gonna happen anymore.
Okay.
So, if people want to vote on it, we can vote on it. If it's 3 votes that carries it, then 3 votes carry it. If it's 3 votes to say no, 3-2, 4-1, 5-0, I am totally okay with it. So, it's not gonna be me, it's gonna be the expression of the board and however the board weighs in on it. But I'm just making my statement that I'm no longer going to be complicit, compliant, and if you think it's getting over it, I'm over it. I'm just simply not going to deal with Jean Rice in that regard anymore.
okay,
So,
thank you both. Any other old business? Report and recommendations of the treasurer.
I was hoping to have the August financials done, but being that it's the end of the grant year, we're still not closed for the month of August yet. So I will have them next meeting,
Okay.
hopefully. If it's not next Monday. But
Yeah.
I hope I'm close by then.
Good enough. Any new business? I have one thing. I think that the gentleman also reached out to Mr. Ballard, but I had a gentleman who is also a coach in the district, Keith Tressel. I don't know if you read the newspaper, but he had an unfortunate accident that took the life of his wife a few weeks back. I think it was a few weeks. It wasn't that long. But he had reached out to me because he is trying to do something in his wife's name, and she was a big dog lover, and he thought that it'd be a good idea that, looking at this district and some of our properties that we just maintain, some of them were the buildings that we demolished, and they're just green space right now. He thought about trying to open up a dog park on the old Lakeview School property.
Correct.
Which is located over there, obviously, by Lakeview Park, where they play at baseball fields. So I don't know, again, that goes back to the earlier question of, we're talking about the district has sold some of our properties, and obviously, we weren't aware of that. I don't know where House Bill 70 lies in that manner about selling off the property, and that is taxpayer money to a degree. But anyway, that's something that if nobody has any objections, I'm going to request a opinion from legal counsel on that
Yeah, that, and also
aspect.
inquiring as to, I mean, even if the land is used for that, how the liabilities work.
Yeah.
You got dogs, and people get bit, and somebody gets bit, then somebody's responsible.
Well, it wouldn't be our property.
Right, but that would mean,
So you're
but,
thinking
'cause
donating it to him for that cost?
Well, that's the
at
thing,
that
it's-
point, or-
Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly he wants to do or what
could it be
steps
done
he'll
when it's
have
still
to
our
do.
property? If he doesn't have the resources to purchase the
I
property?
would,
Correct.
I would imagine we'd have to carry liability
Right,
insurance
and-
on
and
it, so.
we're- And we're
they
carrying
could-
liability now, but how
Yeah.
does that change when it becomes a dog park? That's all. There's a lot of ways to get that thing done, I'm
Right.
thinking.
I think his inquiry, though, is do we still control the property? And would we be willing to donate the property if they were able to get a community movement to build this
To
dog park?
build the infrastructure.
So, yeah, it would be completely out of our hands if we decided to consider that. And I don't know if he would give it to the APL or who other
Exactly.
organization would be willing to come up, kind of like the skate park that he did at Pollock Park.
Yeah, like if it's an APL, there's another public entity.
Exactly.
That's an easy piece because then they have authoritative,
Yeah.
Right.
Or Metro Parks, or somebody right in that neighborhood that takes care of the other portion of those properties. So, question number one, and I told him I would try to find out is, A, did we still control the property? And if we did, would it be for sale or for donation? And I think we need to first find out if we still control it.
I'm thinking we still do, because
Okay.
that would have passed, I think we sold it back in January, February, which one's that? It's still showing we control it on the
Still
auditor's
ours.
site, so
Okay.
I would imagine that's not one of the two we sold.
Okay, very good. Well, I will tell him they're still in our control, and so whatever his next phase is, he can go to his next phase.
Okay.
All right. The only other thing that I have, I sent everybody an email, that October 9th retreat that Youngstown and East Cleveland and Warrensville and all those folks dealing with House Bill 70, they would like our attendance down there on, I think it's October 9th. I'll have to relook at the email, but I know Mr. Ballard said he'd be interested in going if others were going. I'm certainly going to look at my calendar and see if, I can go down there for a little bit. But if anybody else is interested in going.
that's
might
on
be-
Tuesday,
Yeah, I'm assuming, yeah,
the day after Columbus Day, okay. I was just looking.
yeah.
And then there's another, as you're talking, I'll find the request from another school district for our attendance.
Okay. And basically, our role would be talking about the experience with House Bill 70 or something to that effect. I haven't seen the
That
agenda
was the
yet.
one with the OSBA that came through.
So I received, and I'll forward this to everyone, Dr. Mary Rice, who is on the East Cleveland School Board. They're having a retreat, and they asked me if I could attend. And I told them I couldn't that weekend. Let's see, please give the names of board members that will be willing to attend, or any other individuals to make the trip with. Let's see, the time, it would be Monday, September 24th. So what happens is they have a retreat, I think, that weekend, but it ends on the day of school, on a business day, I think.
Right.
So what I'll do is I'll find her initial email and I'll forward it to you all. They are on the cusp of going in under House Bill 70. I was told today, I think Warrensville just got a opt-out.
Really?
Yep. And,
How did that happen?
and somebody else, I don't know. But we knew, well, we've known this. We knew they were in discussions and they were trying to, and I think
thought
one
the
of our
law was
worst
the law.
fears
That's
is
what
realize
they
that
said.
there are going to be a lot of folks who get a reprise on this. The question always was those who got caught in it, just like on that first phase, that they got all the whatever they fell into, no harm zone. That we didn't, the safe harbor, that we didn't get safe harbor, and it
I'm
looks
just
like.
really glad that this bill allows them to just.
Pick and choose who they like
Pick
to
and
donate.
choose what
Yeah,
law you're
how do you
gonna
do
abide
that?
by.
Yeah,
That's what I heard. I heard it today.
Yeah, but how do you do that?
How did they do that?
How did they do that?
Because they know they don't have a clue what's going on with House Bill 70, and they don't want more of Lorain and Youngstown's going on because they're a disaster.
So
right
we're
now.
the only two?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and again, there's some more that are on the edge, but one of them that was on the edge was Warrensville Heights. And from what I heard today, is they may be,
Mayor Brad Sellers must be doing some work over there.
I know,
Yeah.
Somebody's
I met with them,
campaign.
they were,
It's the same game plan that they used for Cleveland.
Yeah.
With Mayor Jackson.
but I don't,
Yep.
that's what I heard. I don't know what the depth of it is, but just hearing it.
Wow.
And there's been a group of folks who've been meeting with
It's
Paulo,
campaign season.
DeMaria, yeah, all that
It's
stuff.
Absolutely.
campaign season. They don't want any roughs. Wow, that's terrible.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of speculation, and there could be a whole lot of reasons why. So
Yeah.
all of the above that we're thinking about is fair game. But that's the game we're in. And,
Totally unfair. Totally unfair.
Crazy,
Yeah.
crazy, crazy.
All right.
so
Any
I heard
other-
there's one more too. I'm not sure which district. I'll try and find out. And
East Cleveland,
We've gotta check.
Madison,
Warrensville Heights,
Warrensville Heights,
Trotwood,
Trotwood,
David
Madison.
City
Trotwood
Schools.
was the one I thought.
I mean, there's
We've got to check who's
several,
got the magic wand.
there's several that, I mean, pretty
Casey.
pretty soon, pretty soon.
Get your checkbook out and start writing the
Yes.
checks at
Pretty
cases.
soon it'll be
This
big
is
enough
the
that
one,
they'll-
right?
they'll
Yeah.
become
My
a
goodness.
political entity within
Yeah.
itself.
I don't know how that's done.
That's special. That is special.
it takes
Anyway,
you to a whole other. Anyway, so yeah, I thought I'd share that with you. I heard today.
any other new business?
Wow.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
such a shame, man.
Second hearing of the public.
Ah, dear.
I have a question or two.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, did you ever resolve the NAACP? Whether the board was gonna take the tickets or what? Was that a yes or no, or did you vote on it, or what? I'm kind of confused.
No, we didn't vote on anything.
Okay, so you're not gonna take a vote then?
Not at this time, no.
Because of the fact that I think it's Saturday.
It's already Saturday.
I said, thank you. They caught that.
Okay. Okay, second thing I was wondering, okay, all of this so-called, this violence that you guys are talking about among students, and then you're throwing in the, what is it, the distress, not the distress, New Beginnings. Are you saying that because the New Beginnings is moved over here in this building, is that why?
We don't know why. We don't even know what
Well,
the.
it's because the New Beginnings was not in this building the previous school year.
New Beginnings hasn't been here for a while.
They just moved over here in September. So what happened the last school year, they weren't even in this building.
Right.
Okay, so did you still have the same problem, or you saying you still have the same problem with
Of the
them
public.
when they were not in this building?
No, first, we're not saying it is New Beginnings.
Okay,
We're-
well,
we're
saying, I'm
that's
saying,
what
here's what I'm
my
saying,
question
I'm saying
That's
this.
me again.
Is there was a reason why New Beginnings was in a separate facility,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
That wasn't a decision that we made just to make it. That was based on recommendations
Right.
of, and so what's happened is, in that situation, initially, we were, gosh, 5 years ago, we were in an uproar about New Beginnings because they were being warehoused. They were not being taught. They were being isolated. It was degrading. It was humiliating. It was unacceptable.
Right.
And so we said, no, we can't do that. Now, they need to be isolated so that they're in the proper environment. We have some kids who don't even want to come back into mainstream high school because they're doing better than they've ever done. I think, what's the principal's name, Davis? They were doing some exemplary work with those students, whereas they could give them attention. So I would guess this, we would have 40 kids graduate from New Beginnings. Prior to having New Beginnings really addressed in its uniqueness, a lot of those kids would never graduated. They would have gotten suspended, expelled, non-motivated. So the idea was, at one time, we wanted to build an alternative high school that was a state-of-the-art facility. Those students, many of them, just need a different environment to function in. Some of them arguably shouldn't be in anybody's school. And that's just the truth of it, right? So what happens when we bring those kids back into this environment, in this setting, and they still got them, I think, somewhat, but again, it's the interaction that occurs with them and other students. And there was a time when most fights that were occurring, probably, if there was 10 suspensions, 3 kids got suspended all those suspensions, right? And so we've had challenges with that population when especially mainstreamed with other students. And so what we've heard is they get out early and then they hang out and wait. I don't know if I don't know of all the fights we've heard, how many of them are new beginning kids, how many are not.
Okay.
So we don't know that, but we know that that is a different variable that exists here now. And, but ultimately, it's not even that. It's the role of safety plans and local law enforcement and recommendations and how they're handling and suspension policies and discipline policies. That's where we need to know exactly what is going on. So, yeah, and again, we've had high reports of incidents of fighting that usually wouldn't occur necessarily in the first few days because they usually kind of figure out the lay of the land first. Then they go off the chain. So we don't know. We don't know because all we've had is speculation from parents, from some teachers, from other folks. So this is the first time we've gotten a report at all from the district.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying with this new system or whatever, the police department is not able to do what they did previously in controlling this?
What I'm saying is we need to meet with everybody to find out. We've heard things. I've heard things directly from the police in terms of how this process is going. And what we're saying is we want to sit down with those folks to find out, because me hearing it as a person is not the board hearing it. And so we want to find out what's happening, what policies have been changed, what are the potential results of those changes, how does law enforcement feel about those changes. So it's not going to be a speculation thing, and then it'll be on the record. This is what's changed, this is the potential impact it has, and when safety officials review that, they say that's reasonable or unreasonable. And then we figure out how to work together to create the safest environment that we can for our students, families, teachers.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah.
So, but what we've heard has been, I would say, alarming. And at a higher escalation than we've had in past years.
Okay, and another thing, I'm sure some of you remember that in years past, there was only maybe an early dismissal on Tuesdays. So this really isn't new.
No, we listen, first of all, anything about dismissals, I'll be quite frank, we're aware of. At one time, we tried to do, remember when with Cheryl? We tried to do an early dismissal on certain days, and what happened is the backlash, and it made great sense for professional development. The problem that we had was dealing with kids going home and transportation. So we had to not do that because it really impacts elementary kids much more than high school kids. High school kids dismissal not as much, but again, there are still all kinds of considerations when you do a regularized early dismissal. We're not saying it's right, wrong, or otherwise. We're just trying to, when we hear about it from parents or somebody else.
Yeah.
So the first time I heard about the early dismissal was at this meeting just now.
Oh, well, no, I'm just saying it's nothing new because it has happened in years past.
Yeah. It's happened, it's not happened. There are always reasons why things happen, and then there's usually reasons why they change. And that has to do with transportation. It has to do with, because that's a lot of logistical things to deal with. It has to do with kids being unsupervised. Maybe that's not our number one concern, but that is that factors in.
Yeah.
When the kid comes home an hour early, parents have to accommodate for that. So it's just, I don't know that it's anything that's unusual, but generally there is. So I don't know if it's gonna. It hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's gonna work out great, and it might well work out. We just don't know because. Yeah. Every Tuesday a month or every Tuesday.
One Tuesday a month.
It's the same Tuesday every month, I presume.
Yes.
I've never had them. My kids, 5th grade, 2nd grade.
Yeah, the whole new scheduling is crazy. I mean, kids are home more. I mean, like, I kind of like it that we get off on a Friday and a Monday because they'll do a PD
Yeah,
on the Friday of the Monday holiday.
yeah, we had that back then,
Yeah.
first, so I've been with, I taught, so.
I wish we'd have got 4 days off when I was in school.
This is all old school.
Elyria got a hot day.
We never had that.
The schools, there was
A lot
like
of
3 or
schools
4,
did.
4 schools in Lorain County
Yeah.
because it was too hot.
No AC, and it's too hot of a day.
Mark? what would we be doing?
Turn off the lights and put your head down. That's what my teacher said. Turn off the lights.
Put the socks on your hands in the wintertime, right?
That's what we got.
That's what you got.
That's what we got.
You have to stay home because it's too hot. I was
Yeah.
like, wow. What kind of wimps have we raised, right? These are our kids, right?
My granddaughter went to school one of those days. She goes to St. Peter's, my great-granddaughter. And they didn't have air conditioning. And what I was thinking is why? Why, you know, I wish they would have just called me. I would have went and got her.
Yeah.
Because I don't think children should be sitting
We're
there.
talking about, we didn't have air conditioning, you gotta open
We
the
didn't
windows and fan yourself.
But you know what also, and I think about this,
Talking about no air
is
conditioning.
my kids have never been without air conditioning.
Well, I have.
Right, we had, because we grew up without it, right? We'd roll the windows down. If it's raining, you're gonna be hot or wet, one of the two. It's a choice. Nowadays, kids have never lived without it. They don't, when air conditioning goes out of my house, can we go to a hotel? I go to a what? They've never lived without it. Every car they've ever been in had an air conditioner, unless it's broken.
Okay, I have a quick question.
They were just adding stuff.
We're still back
Play it one
into
time.
public.
Yeah, we're in public.
We're still hearing from the
One
public.
more question.
Yeah, when you were talking about the handbooks and all this kinds of stuff, when I was working there, I haven't retired that much long, not too long ago. We didn't get all that stuff right the first week, the first 2 weeks of
Yeah,
school.
we always did.
We did.
All the years I taught, day one, you were handed all that.
We didn't have-
Actually, prior to, you got it at orientation, is when you got it,
We
absolutely.
didn't get all the stuff at orientation in my building.
school
I'll let you know
for the weeks
that.
with
My
the
next thing, that when they had fights at our school, we had to call the police to come to break up a fight. So, I don't know the safety that you had, and we had gangs coming up there, punching kids coming out of the, out of, I guess when they get ready to get out of the gang, they got beat up. When they get ready to we had to call the police, and it took them, by the time the police got there.
That's
the
no longer
fight
how it
was
works.
over. Huh? We
That's-
didn't even have, we were supposed to have safety people there, and our safety people were at the other high school. By the time the secretary called the regular police and the safety police, the fight was broken up, and the safety police from Southview never showed up.
And that's not our issue anymore. We
I
have.
know, but I'm
yeah.
just saying that,
So-
I don't know what these new rules or what all this is happening. It's like I said, I'm trying to say, don't act like something's new that's not new.
Believe me,
My
this
other
is.
thing is, I'm not getting upset with you. I love you, Tony.
Wow, buddy.
She loves you, Tony, and she looks at me.
She didn't mean that.
Now, I think, what are they telling the teachers about breaking up a fight? Do you have, when you guys were running things, what were your policies for teachers? I'd like to know, because I heard some different, we were told different things. So what did you tell your teachers about a fight?
Don't get hurt.
I've never told them anything. There's a policy that I'm sure that they go through in their protocols on breaking up fights and remaining safe. I have no idea what that protocol exactly is.
I've never heard of one really, or in a teacher's manual. I never saw one unless it was one just for the high school. But sometimes we were told that you be careful when you break up a fight, don't do this, don't do that when they're having a fight. So I'm wondering if the board had any kind of, since we put in new standards or something for fights.
Those things are dealt with through the administrative
With the.
piece,
with-
yeah. If they're, like law enforcement will give you new protocols, the latest way of dealing with things. How they dealt with safety 3 years ago
They're not
are
dealing with.
Columbine, post-Columbine. All this stuff is different and it's continuously changing. So we get updates on other boards that I'm on with the police on the new changes. And they make the recommendations on how adults should engage. Remember when we had our safety officers? We had so many people who were on disability because of breaking up fights, because they would break up the fight the wrong way. Yeah, so that's a
So
whole,
I wanted to know the.
That's what I said.
that's a whole other
Don't
world.
get hurt.
We don't do
Teachers,
that.
that's what I want to know. Teachers aren't supposed, they call them.
I don't know.
We just make policy, we don't tell teachers what to do, that's for our superintendent to take care of that. We say that if you fight, ours used to be, if you fight, you will be suspended.
Clowns.
Yeah, that's the
Send
only
that
thing I know
nonsense
is
to me
true.
when I-
Yeah.
Okay, because, I know that.
That's true.
And people who, even if they get.
Yeah, our safety officers are trained. They go through training with local law enforcement. They go through how to use pepper spray, how to use chemicals. They go through all that stuff. They go in, they wrestle, they show them how to break up fights, how to take kids down. They deal with all that. That's in their domain.
And I got another question. Is it like when you go home, the rule was, that we were told, that when the kid leaves the school, the minute he puts his foot on his property, where the school is not responsible for the kid anymore. So if they go home, put their books in the house, and come back and start a fight, we're not responsible for. Is that still rule, they can come back to school? Then we have kids go home, kids and come back on school property and start a fight.
Regardless if it's on school property, it's a liability for the school.
Yeah.
But it's not.
I mean,
that rule,
regardless if it's
so-
a student or a person on school property, it's a liability for the district
So
in
the
some
parent-
way or sort,
So the parents aren't responsible if they went home and put their books, how the kids go home, and they'll come back on school property after,
Yeah.
and something happens, so the school is still responsible even though they.
From a
went home?
liability standpoint, I
Oh.
don't know otherwise. I don't know what the board policy speaks to. I don't know at what point it's not, from a liability insurance standpoint, if it's on school property, regardless who it is, it's a school liability issue.
Similar to when our kids are at another sporting event in another school, and they get an altercation, they can be disciplined back in the district. There's a lot more range that has been given to districts, because, first of all, the school district has the exact same rights as a parent. In fact, school districts have more rights with kids than police officers do, because they're operating ad parentis, which means they can search a locker where the police can't. When that kid is in that school, the school district has many of the exact same rights as a parent would. So it's real different. So we just try to create as much situations where kids aren't in those situations. But honestly, I don't even know who's liable for what where. I know that when kids are leaving the building and they get in a fight on the street, we have some issue with that. When kids are at our bonfire and there's fighting, we got to deal with all that. So. And it's about safety.
Yeah, we were told that once they went home and something happens and they're back around, that we're not responsible for that kid. If anything happens, the parents would call the house and call the school and say, Johnny beat up Sally, and and they're trying to make the school, and they said that they were home and they came back out. They wanted to blame the school. So I'm just wondering, that's what we were told, that, that once they went home, that we're not responsible for anything they do after.
I think sometimes administrators will try and trace it to see if it started at school. I've heard that. I don't know what our position in terms of authority is, though.
I'm wondering if it's anything, what's going on, if people know what the teachers' rights are, or the kids' rights, not the kids' rights, but, what we're really responsible for. Kids coming here and going home and coming back and starting math, on our property, what can we do about it? What about the parents? What do you do to them?
Right, how much responsibility do they have for the safety? Starts at home.
Yep.
Are they held responsible for what their child does or not? If they under 18, they should be responsible for them. And something, that would stop a whole lot of mess.
Yeah.
Put that parent in jail for a couple of nights. We heard what that child did. I bet they go back to the old school and they kick and run.
Some of the other things we can consider is there's some community intervention groups out there that can come and talk with our kids as well.
Old-fashioned
work-
schooling back in the day. That's
Yeah,
what we used to
yeah,
say.
yeah. But you go to cities like Chicago and Detroit and even Cleveland, they have some intervention groups that actually come in and work with, because what I'm told is the gangs are
This is
becoming.
not Chicago.
I understand, but we do have gangs.
This is the country compared to Chicago.
I don't disagree, but we had a really bad rash of gang violence that was taking place here 5-7 years ago. And
Well,
what,
make them gang members' parents sit in jail for them.
I get it.
I bet you they break them gangs up.
Well,
That sounds great, but I'm just telling you, the police are very concerned at this point that the rash of gang violence is starting to permeate here at the high school again. And before it gets out of control, we're trying to get that lid back on that can. And if it's going to the community, if it's going to the parents, I think we all need to do an insurgence on it and just kind of take off before it gets out of control, because we know the kids. We know the kids, we know the parents, we know the community, and though it's just a statistic or a number around here, we know it's Johnny Jones, you know what I'm saying? We know it's Lily Jones' son, and we don't want anybody to get hurt. That's where that is. I mean, that's on the real.
Yep, and some kids are not kids anymore. They're criminals. They're perpetrators. They're hurting other kids. And
And they shouldn't be here.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so we have to deal with that population uniquely differently than everybody else. And when we try and treat all the same, based on what you know about this as background, it's just, that's why we're concerned, is because this stuff can get upside down real fast. And then all of a sudden, remember back in the days when there'd be 5 or 6 fights at every football game? And we don't even want to get there, because once that snowball starts rolling, trying to grab it back, oh man, it's, yeah.
We had on the agenda, sir.
Can we leave?
I was waiting for you guys.
I want to go to New
Our
Wingstop.
next board meeting,
We just finished the public.
second hearing of the public.
I think Mrs. Vaughn has something that she wants to add.
The only other thing on our agenda is executive session, and I don't believe we have anything for executive session.
No, I was trying to get in my motion.
What's the motion?
I would like to make a motion that the Lorain City.
We got to walk it on the agenda
Board-
first.
Got to make a motion to walk it on first.
Oh. I'd like to make a motion that the Lorain City Board of Education buy a table
For-
of 8.
Before we can vote on it, you have to walk it on the agenda. So you have to vote to put that on the agenda.
I'd like to,
So she's got a motion, it needs a second.
yes.
I'm not even clear on the motion. What's the motion?
She wants the board to purchase a table at the NAACP event.
That is my motion.
So the motion is to put this agenda
Is that
for us to vote on, to put it on
To
the
put it on the
agenda.
agenda
Yes.
to vote.
correct?
Do I need to say it again?
No.
Yeah, now
it
you're
needs-
waiting for a second.
It needs a second.
Yes, I
in
need a
order for it
second. Can I get a second?
All right. Unfortunately, there's not a second, so we can't walk it on. The next board meeting is scheduled for next Monday, 5 o'clock. Is everybody still okay with that? That's our regular scheduled board meeting? I know this is a special, so we had to reschedule this one.
Right. So I think with the contingency pieces, and I think we should be able to ensure windows, get the people that we would like to be at that, the chief and that, because that's a major thing. If they needed to wait a week, if they needed another week. So is there any way we can
Is that
check
something that,
their schedule and then
you guys
put
can
the announcement out?
facilitate?
What's the date for next Monday?
Same as I did for this, and see if they're available to come.
Yeah, reach out to the chief,
17.
and then we go in executive session, you
You
know.
want,
That way we can have a conversation in executive session.
you're
about
referring to
safety.
chief as
Chief Rivera?
Chief Rivera?
Yeah, no, an
There's
actual
so many
chief.
other chiefs.
And then,
there.
I thought you were meaning Jeff. I
He's an
didn't know.
actual chief of police.
Tony.
Yes, yes, so.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Do you understand the reason why I wanted to walk on the motion? Because it's the 15th, and if we don't walk it on today, which we mentioned it previously at the other board member at meeting, this will be over with.
Well, I understand, but I can't walk it on without a second, and the motion didn't carry a second.
And
It's like,
it
I can't do anything
didn't
about
last
that.
time. So it's been twice, and it hasn't been walked on. I just wanted to make that perfectly clear.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So, chief, and who else do we want?
I think Jeff Hawk, somebody from the administration.
Yeah, please give a formal invite for Jeff Hawks to be here. And continue to invite the CEO, please.
Yeah.
And until we tell different, invite the CEO on every meeting, so.
I don't know if it makes a difference, but I can tell you that there is is it ADC next Monday? So they'll probably be there, I assume,
So if that's the case, why don't we
if you push it out a week.
move our
then-
meeting a week?
Okay, we can.
Yeah, I
That'll
mean,
be a
if-
special too then,
Yeah,
right?
it'll be
Yeah,
special.
because again,
Cancel
if-
the
if-
17th, make it the 23rd.
So next week, our meeting is our regular meeting, right?
So,
And I think that's the other question, maybe Tony, you can send a letter to chair. Why would they schedule their meetings on our regular meetings?
well, you know why.
But it's the formal answer.
Right.
So I think that it'd be a good gesture, and for us, important to just bump our meeting out on theirs, because we need somebody from the administration to be here for this. The conversation will be much more, I think, provide more information. Having this meeting without Jeff Hawks or without someone that Hardy would send.
Agreed. 24th? So
And-
the recommendation is for our next meeting to be on the 24th at 5 o'clock?
So we're gonna cancel our next meeting,
So we'll cancel Mondays.
but we're canceling because they can't be here. So why don't we just keep our same rotation?
Yes, see if,
I'm okay with
And then
that.
let's
Yeah.
schedule them whenever they can get here.
okay.
So we can get back on terms. We're
Yeah.
just gonna keep having specials.
They're at
Right.
different times anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's keep
That's
our
fine,
meeting
that's fine.
schedule, and then let's reach out to them even if we have to call.
What time's
them.
the ADC?
I think it's at 5.
And I would like to make a
Imagine that.
suggestion also, that the Lorain City Board of Education write a letter to Gene Rice and make some suggestions on how to improve the relationship between the board and the NAACP so that we can have a positive relationship.
It's fair enough.
17th or 24th? We'll keep it 17th.
17th. Same. Same. Keep it scheduled
I
same.
think you do. We never did it.
Ours are set in an organizational meeting
We send it to.
well before
How many
theirs.
the whole thing, so that the superintendent, I mean, the CEO, and who
I don't recall them ever having. All right. Motion to adjourn. Need one and a support.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Demakia?
Demakia?
Leave him be, please, just leave
Yeah,
him.
I know.
He's staying.
Ms. Johnson?
Here.
This has been a production of Lorain City Schools TV 20 WLCS.